for the infusion of positive energy into the lives of single Latter-day Saints everywhere. This is Joy in the Journey Radio.
And welcome back, peeps. Another wonderful, splendiferous, joyous episode of Joy in the Journey Radio. I am Lance, your host for Joy in the Journey Radio. Today is the 10th of November, 2021, and this is episode number 202, Great Diligence. Thomas Paine once wrote, "What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly." True that. The further I get into my PhD program, the harder it becomes, but that just means it'll be worth it. Again, from Thomas Paine, by perseverance and fortitude, we have the prospect of a glorious issue. Alma the Younger agrees. His classic discourse on faith, in which he compares the word to a seed, describes continually putting forth effort as a seed grows into maturity. "Then, my brethren," Alma declared, "ye shall reap the rewards of your faith, and your diligence, and patience, and long-suffering, waiting for the tree to bring forth fruit unto you." Everything works that way. We all dream of having our best life, but to have that life, you must pay a price in faith, diligence, patience, and long-suffering, and daily doing the small acts that over time will aggregate into a harvest of success. Most people don't do that because it's hard, but that's precisely why it's worth doing. With great diligence, you can have the positive changes you want in your life. Success isn't complicated. Do the right things day after day, and eventually you get what you want. But like the seed in Alma's parable, you don't reap a harvest overnight, and that's probably the hardest part of achieving success. We all have changes we want in our lives, but taking action day after day and not seeing the results you want can wear you down. Many quit the fight too soon. Because only action produces results, quitting the fight means taking no action, which means getting no results. So, what can keep you in the fight when it gets hard? Alma provides an answer. He mentions diligence, but first, he mentions faith. That's what can pull you through. With a vision of your life after you pay your price for what you want, you can keep on keeping on. I've used that in my PhD program. As I felt the challenge increase, I remember teaching as an adjunct and relive how good it felt to work my dream job. My faith that overcoming my present difficulty will get me closer to the result I seek drives me through the difficulty. So it is with anything in life. Seeing the light at the end of the tunnel is really the other side of the mountain, and not an oncoming train, can help you push forward no matter how bleak your present position. As you push on in the darkness of the moment, the difficulty separating you from your desired best life isn't just in doing what's needed every day, but also in having to wait for results to materialize. We all want results on our schedule, and our schedule often screams now. So it's not surprising Alma to faith and diligence adds patience. It takes patience to nourish a seed into maturity. Part of the price you'll pay for what you want is in patience. You must take the small steps required day after day, continually putting forth effort with faith. Those results will come, especially when they don't come instantly. Faith helps me have patience, but so does celebrating small wins. Recognizing the victory, no matter how small, helps me feel I'm making progress and moving closer to my best life. Having patience in the overall journey and not just the task before me also helps. When one approach fails, I don't lose hope. I have faith the approach I need exists, and I keep searching with the determination to do so until I find the approach that will work for me. That attitude necessitates a lot of trial and error, which requires long suffering. Often you must pay your price over a long time without seeing desired results. Little wonder Alma includes long suffering in his parable of the seed. Suffering must be endured. It makes your harvest much more precious. But suffering doesn't mean you must be miserable. You can have sincere joy while suffering if you strengthen your faith and focus on the blessings and opportunities along the way. Whatever positive changes you want can be yours if you pay in full and in advance the price you must pay. That requires diligence in doing the small daily actions that over time will accumulate into your success. But you also need faith to see the glory awaiting you, patience to allow the natural workings of the universe to operate, and long suffering to endure well the time before results come. With those three attributes married to diligence, you can make whatever positive change you want. You can have your best life. And that will bring you more joy in your journey. Back in a moment.
Joy in the Journey Radio.
And welcome back from that break, peeps. We are here in the JJ Zone, Joy in the Journey Radio. Today, talking about, what are we talking about? We're talking about diligence. And I'm particularly focusing on a verse from the Book of Mormon that I quoted in the monologue, which was, look it up here. Should have it in my head, but I don't. Alma 32:43. So, yeah, I mean, Alma's classic discourse about faith. And it, one thing we got to understand about this discourse is that Alma is comparing the word to a seed. I mean, if you read, I think it's back what verse? Thinking what it was. Verse 28, I think it was. Anyway, where he actually begins talking about his comparison. He's not comparing faith to a seed. He's comparing the word to a seed. I think that's an important distinction. He's comparing the word to a seed. But, the thing I really love about the parable is how it's so applicable to like all the like processes of change that we want to integrate into our lives. Because we all have changes that we want to make into our lives. Because we all dream about having a better life. Many of us are dreaming about that best life that we can have. And that requires some change to happen. Obviously, we're dreaming about something because there's something we want that we don't have. Otherwise, if we had everything that we wanted, we wouldn't be dreaming about anything. There'd be no motivation, no impetus for dreaming about anything. So obviously, the fact that we do dream about having something different says that there's some change that we desire to have in our lives. Now, that could be a lot of different things. A lot of people, they're trying to give up some bad habit, or they're trying to take on a good habit. Some people are trying to lose weight. Some people are trying to get a better job. Some, those of us who are single, a lot of us Latter-day Saint singles are trying to get married. Um, it's just, I mean, it's different, right? It's like, I know, a lot of married people who are trying to add to their family, or even trying to create a family, because, I mean, they tried to start, but it's just not coming for whatever reason. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we need, or that we think we need, in order to have the life that we want. So, how is it that we make those changes? This is what I love about the parable of the seed. That's the name I'm giving to Alma's classic discourse here in Alma 32. Where, yeah, he talks about faith, but notice he talks about diligence. Diligence, and the different examples that he gives about planting the seed and nourishing it, and the conditions necessary for that seed to grow. I mean, there's one point in the parable where he says, you try the experiment. So there's some, experimentation going on here, which suggests that, we're actually acting without a foreknowledge of how things are going to turn out. But we're we're relying on faith, right? We're walking by faith. We're going to try the experiment and see if it's good. And that's the way it is for a lot of the changes that we need to make in our lives. We go and try something and we're not really sure it's going to work, but we have faith that, something might happen from it. So, there you go. Off we go. We're running. We're off to the races. And yeah, so we just keep trying it, see if something will work. And Alma talks about how sometimes the seed doesn't grow, and so we think, well, it must be that the seed was a bad seed, and he comes back and says, no, the seed was good, but it didn't grow because your ground was barren. You didn't plant it properly. You didn't nourish the seed. I mean, if you don't nourish it, it's going to die. That's the way a lot of processes for change are in our lives. It's like if you don't do what's required, and oftentimes what's required are just small actions that you have to do day in and day out. And, if you don't do those things, if you don't do the work, then the seed doesn't grow. You're not going to harvest something unless you're nourishing the seed, and that requires a daily effort. And so a lot of the changes that we need to make in our lives are the same way. You know, it we have to do what is needed, and that's important to recognize. Sometimes we go after something and we don't get the results that we want, and so we think, well, this must not be worth going after. When really, instead of giving up on what we want, what we need to do is find another way. Because as we've discussed so often here on the program, it's like frustration is a sign that you're going about something the wrong way. So when you get frustrated by something, you need to stop. Have enough self awareness to realize, oh, wait, frustration is a sign. I need to stop, take a step back, and reassess, reevaluate my approach because I'm approaching this the wrong way. I need to make a change in how I'm approaching this. So many of us singles get frustrated with dating. And if we would just remember that frustration is a sign you're going about something the wrong way, when we get frustrated with our approach to dating, that should be a sign that, hey, you're doing something the wrong way. So you need to stop, take a step back, and reevaluate what it is that you're doing. And just rethink this because you're going about this the wrong way. And, that's part of the reason why, on this program, we talk about changing the way that you think and making sure everything up here is proper, making sure you've got good assumptions, making sure that you watch your self talk, making sure your perspectives and your attitudes are in line, making sure that your thinking is aligned with true principles. Because once your thinking is aligned with true principles, then that will lead to actions that are aligned with true principles. And the actions produce results. Results then combine with the meaning that we ascribe to it to produce the reality that we live. So a lot of it just goes back to our own choices and how we choose to think. And that's why we talk about that here on the program. That's why we talk about the fundamentals of the dating journey. Because we're trying to impart the appropriate ways to think about this. We're trying to approach this in a more correct way so that we get more correct results. And it's really not that hard. I mean, once you understand what's going on, it's really not that hard. And that's the way it is with everything in life. For whatever change it is that you want to make in your life, you know, if what you're doing isn't working, it's not a matter of, well, you just gotta keep going at it because you haven't seen it yet. No, come on. If your ground is barren, then you need to change the approach you're using to grow your seed. Okay, find some better soil to plant your seed in, and then you'll see better results. And a lot of the things that we do to get the changes that we want in our lives are the same way. You know, I mean, because here's the thing: if you're approaching something the wrong way, more of the wrong way is just going to get you more frustrated. It's not going to give you the results that you want. So you gotta realize, when you get frustrated, that's a sign. Stop, take a step back, reassess. You've got to find a different approach to get what you want because the way you're going about it is not going to do it for you. And if you just take that approach with just everything, all the changes that we're trying to make in our lives, I think it'll go a lot better for us. Now, it can get a little frustrating because oftentimes we don't know what the right approach is. And so, as I talked about in the monologue, you've got this little trial and error thing going on. But, this is where, you've got to have the diligence, like Alma says, but to do the things that you need to do every day, because all these little small successes will grow and grow and grow and amalgamate into the success that we're actually seeking. But it's more than just diligence. See, this is why Alma also mentions three other virtues, right? He's mentioning first, he mentions faith. You got to have faith, you got to have that vision that, the other side is going to be worth it, that the grass really is greener there, that, that light you see at the end of the tunnel, it really is the other side of the mountain and not an oncoming train. right? You've got to have the faith that things will work for you, that eventually you're going to get the reward that you're seeking. And you've got to have patience because things don't always happen on our schedule. In fact, if you're anything like me, things rarely happen on your schedule. You get all kinds of things happening when you don't want them to happen. And the things you do want to happen, yeah, they take longer than you really want them to. So you got to have patience to let the internal workings of the universe, the natural laws that, God has established for how the universe works. You got to give these laws time to operate. Just like in Alma's parable of the seed. I mean, seeds don't grow to full maturity overnight. It's not like you plant the seed one day and you're harvesting the next. It takes time for the seed to grow, time in which you have to have the patience to nourish that seed to maturity. And that's the way it is with all the changes that we want in our lives. It's exactly the same way. We have to have the patience to work through the process and let it take its time. And we've got to have long suffering because, sometimes the things that we want to have happen in our lives, it's just, it can get really trying to keep working and working and working and doing those needed things day in and day out and not see the results that we want. It can wear you down. And so you got to have long suffering to push through that period of time in which you're not seeing any results. And then, if you can do that, then hey, you can pay the price to get what you want. And that's the thing. You can have anything you want. You just have to pay the price that you need to pay to get it. I think that's important to recognize. You have to pay your price. See, if you want to see the show, you got to have a ticket, right? You don't get a ticket if you don't pay the price in full. And you don't get it if you don't pay the price in advance. It's not like you go up to the ticket booth and say, "Yeah, I want a ticket to the show, but I'll give you half now and half when I come back out." It doesn't work that way. You got to pay in full. And you got to pay before you go in, right? It's not like, "Hey, man, spot me here with the ticket and I'll pay you when I get out." No, it ain't nothing like that. You got to pay in full, in advance, and you have to pay your price. Okay, this is an important thing because oftentimes we get stuck with these unfair comparisons. We look at other people and we say, "Well, no, wait a minute. They have to pay a very high price. I'm having to pay more for the same ticket to the same show. How come I have to pay more?" See, these kind of comparisons are just not productive because then you get caught up in the differences and you get focused away from the work that you need to do. The work that you need to do is to pay your price. So quit comparing yourself to others. These comparisons are just not fair. They're just not productive. Focus on the work you need to do. Focus on the changes you need to make in you. Focus on getting good with you. Focus on doing the work that you need to do to pay the price to get what you want. And once you pay your price in full and in advance, then you can have whatever it is you want. It's really no more complicated than that. We're coming to a break. Let's go ahead and take that break. When we come back from the break, I want to dive further into these virtues that I was talking about in the monologue that Alma mentions in his parable of the seed, as I'm calling it. So stick with me here. We will see you on the other side of the break.
Joy in the Journey Radio.
And welcome back, Pete, from that break. We are here in the JJ Zone, Joy in the Journey Radio. Today, talking about the need for diligence. Diligence. With great diligence, you can have whatever you want. You can make whatever change you want to make in your life. You can make that change in your life. Now, I want to talk about in this segment of the program and go into a deeper dive into the virtues that Alma was giving in his parable of the seed. So, of course, he mentions diligence. And that just kind of makes sense, right? It's like you're not going to get what you want if you don't do the things that you need to do every day. And oftentimes, they're just little things, you know. I mean, the hard part is doing the little things day after day and to keep doing them even though you don't feel like doing it, even though you don't not seeing the results immediately that you're looking for, to just keep on keeping on. That's often the hardest part. But if we can find the way to push through that, we can get to the other side. We can get to the place where we have the change that we want in our lives. We have that, closer proximity to our goals and dreams, to the best life that we're trying to, shoot for and live for. So, you got to be diligent. That just that should be pretty patently obvious to everybody. But Alma pairs other virtues, and specifically three other virtues, with that virtue of diligence. And the first one he mentions is faith. Faith is so important. It's like, I do this here. So it's like, faith is like so necessary to help you push through the hard times. Because I mean, and in the monologue, I use the example of my PhD program. As I'm getting further and further into the program, I've noticed it just feels like it's getting more and more difficult, more and more challenging. Of course, as I said in the monologue, that just means it's worth it, right? Because I mean, if it were easy, it wouldn't be worth anything. If it were easy, everyone could be doing it. But a lot of people don't go this far. A lot of people don't get this just simply because it's too much work for them. It's too hard for them. So one thing I've used to help pull me through is this idea of faith. And this is how it works for me. You know, I think back to the moments when I was teaching as an adjunct before I started my program. And the whole reason, I relive the whole reason why I started this was because the only way I could do the work that I wanted to do, which is teach, teaching is my dream job. And the only way I could do that full time and I mean, to be seriously competitive for it is to have a PhD. Because even with my master's degree, which allows me to teach at, say, a 2-year school, the people that are applying for open positions, uh, the bulk of them have a PhD. And so, how do you compete with that? Well, the only way to compete with that is you got to have a PhD too. And so, that's why I started my program. But as it's gotten harder, what is it that gets me through? What is it that keeps me in the fight to keep going after my dream? And this is where I was getting at before when I said, I think back to when I was teaching as an adjunct before I started my program. And I think about how good it felt, how satisfying it was. I can go back and I can think about, like, the classes that I really enjoyed teaching. I bring myself back to those moments and I relive them. I relive inside how it felt, how good it felt, how satisfying it was to do work that I enjoyed doing, to do work that I felt was meaningful, to do work that I felt was appreciated, to do work that brought me joy in so many different ways. And I relive that. I had a taste of my dream job in those moments. And I go back and I look at that and I listen to that and I think to myself, this is what I can have all the time if I finish my program. Because if I finish my program, I'll be more competitive for a full-time teaching position. It'll be easier for me to get. Now, it doesn't mean that I will get it. It's not a guarantee. There are very few guarantees in life, but it will put me in a better position to get the job that I want. And that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that opportunity to have my dream job. And I think about, how good it's going to feel. And, we can all do the same thing, regardless of what change it is that we want to make in our lives. So, let's say, for example, you want to lose weight. Well, why is it you want to lose weight? I mean, there's all different reasons why you want to lose weight, but just think about, why it is that you want to lose weight. I can remember, I think it was, I was reading one of Stephen Covey's books. There's a part of me that wants to say it was Seven Habits, but yeah, there's a part of me that's like not completely sure about that. But anyway, one of his books, he talks about, how, there's this guy he knew who was trying to lose weight. And, the reason why he wanted to lose weight is so that, he could reduce his risk of cardiovascular disease so that he could be around for his granddaughter's graduation from college. He wanted to see his daughter graduate. And, he wanted to be there for that life moment. Well, if he didn't shape up and, you know, get his diet in line and, start exercising and basically get his body into shape, he ran a serious risk of having a heart attack and not being around for that life moment. And so, when it got hard, and look, I'm sure all of us have had these moments, right? Where we go with the diet or the exercise or both, and we reach that moment where it starts getting hard, and it's like, but see, when he got to those moments, he just thought about what is it he was trying to do, what he was trying to accomplish, and the reason why he wanted to accomplish it, and thinking about how good it would feel, how satisfying it would be to be there in that life moment when his granddaughter graduated from college, to be there in that life moment, how satisfying it would be to share that moment with her. That gave him what he needed to push through. And I've seen that work for my PhD program. I think a lot of us can use that same technique to push through the difficulties that we face and the changes that we need to make in our lives so that we can, not give up. Because, I mean, that's I, too many of us give up too soon. I'm convinced too many of us just give up too soon. We don't, we get close to where we need to be, but because we don't have the patience to let things take the time that they need to take, we're too impatient. We want to see the results. And, we don't really go through everything we need to go through. We quit too soon. We need, and that's why, again, Alma with his parable of the seed, he mentions faith, diligence. So we have the faith, the vision of what we're going to see at the end, that's going to pull us through. We need to have the diligence to do what needs to be done, the small daily tasks that need to be done day in and day out. And then, beyond that, we need to have patience, right? Because, I mean, here's the thing, patience, things take time, right? I mean, not everything's instantaneous. We're living in this, microwave internet generation where, you push a button or you push a little spot on your screen and, something happens instantly. And we expect everything in life to be that way. We expect instantaneous everything. But, a lot of results, the natural process that produces them takes time. And so we need to have patience to take the time that's necessary to go through and do what's needful. And let the processes of the universe, do what they do. Let them take the time. I know it can be hard when you keep doing what you need to do day after day and you don't see the results that you want. But if you're doing the right thing, then you just need to just keep on keeping on. Now, if you're not getting results because you're taking the wrong approach, then yeah, you need to change something up there, because the wrong approach is not going to get you what you want. Right? The wrong approach is not going to get you what you want. And so if you just, keep doing it, I mean, there are people out in the world that say, yeah, patience is a good thing and you got to have patience, but you can't have patience with the wrong approach. That's just going to give you more frustrated. It's like, you're beating your head against the wall and you're like, oh man, I got a headache. I don't feel very good. I'm trying to feel good. So you're beating your head against the wall, but it's only giving you a headache. And it's like, well, maybe I'm just not doing it. Maybe I'm not. I just need to keep going for a longer period of time. So if you're beating your head against the wall and doing that for a longer period of time, it's just going to give you not just a headache, but also a bloody forehead. So, let's skip the carnage. All right, let's skip the carnage and let's take a step back. If it's not working for you, it's not you're not going to get the results that you want. So sometimes that's why I say, when you get frustrated, it's a sign. You got to step back and reassess your approach. Are you just beating your head against the wall? Because that's not the right approach for anything, really. Unless you're trying to get a headache and a bloody forehead, then keep on keeping on. Keep boom, 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 keep banging that head in. But most of us aren't trying to do that. That's not the objective most of us have. Most of us have an objective that says, yeah, you know what, I'm trying to make some positive changes in my life. I'm trying to improve my life, trying to get to my best life. And so if the approach that you're taking to get there is not right, it's not going to produce results. Now, sometimes results don't come simply because you haven't let the natural process, work its way through. So, I mean, and the classic story of this example is I think it's like the Chinese bamboo. Like you plant it in the ground and you have to water it. You constantly water it for like 5 years before it even sprouts out of the ground. So for 5 years, it looks like you're just dumping water on the ground. I mean, it's like, hey man, what are you doing? I'm growing a plant. And it's like you've been watering the same spot for years and nothing happened. But then, once it sprouts after like that 5 year period, man, it just shoots up into the sky. And, I mean, it really grows. So, some things in life are like that. You got to do the right things and you keep doing them day in and day out, but you don't see the results because it takes time for the natural processes that govern that growth, that change to happen. And so you just got to keep on keeping on doing the right thing. How do we know that we're doing the right thing? Well, the first answer we give to that question, because there's two parts to it. First, you got to partner with the Lord. You got to get the revelation that you need. I mean, the Spirit can confirm that the next step you're taking is the right one for you, but the Spirit can also lead you to other people. And this is the second part that I would answer that question with, and that is you got to surround yourself with people who know what they're doing, with people who can help you figure out what that right action is. And very often, when it comes to making changes in our lives, we need social support. So, getting yourself around people who are knowledgeable about the change that you need to make, who've made that change themselves and who are willing to, help and lend that support to be cheerleaders, as it were, yeah, that can be invaluable. So, yeah, I answer the question two ways. First, partner with the Lord so you can get the revelation you need. And then second, you know, partner with other people, people who will support you in making the change that you're looking to make. I'm looking at the clock here. We're well overdue for another break. Let me take that break now. And when we come back from the break, I'll wrap up the program with some final thoughts. See you there on the other side. That's right. We're taking a break now. Yeah, break. Take the break. All right, here we go. Yeah. No, I'm serious. We're taking a break now. Yes. Take the break.
Joy in the Journey Radio.
And welcome back from that break, peeps. We are here in the JJ Zone, Joy in the Journey Radio. Today, talking about diligence, the need for diligence to make the changes that we want to make in our lives, to have the best life that we want. You got to make changes, and oftentimes that change requires diligence. In fact, I don't really know about like the real changes that we need to make in our lives that are really substantial. I don't know any of them that are going to happen without diligence on our part. I really don't. I don't know any of them that are going to happen without diligence on our part. So we got to have diligence. But with diligence, we need to have other virtues. And Alma in the Book of Mormon describes these virtues perfectly, in his parable of the seed in Alma 32. So, where we're looking at, he mentions diligence, but he also mentions faith. He mentions patience. And we talked about those two virtues in the last segment. And now, before we wrap up the program today, I want to talk about the last virtue that he mentioned, which is long suffering. Long suffering is something that you're going to need, okay? Especially when the results that you want aren't necessarily coming on your schedule, on your time frame. And, doing the work that you need to do without seeing the results can be disheartening. It can be disappointing. It can be discouraging. But, don't be dissing yourself. It's like discouraging, disheartening, but don't diss yourself. I love language. So yeah, it's you have to endure this time that you have to do the work without seeing the result. But just because you're suffering through this, I mean, not all suffering is. I mean, that not all suffering has to be miserable. I mean, part of this is just you have to understand it's par for the course. It's just the nature of the field. It's like you want to play this game, you've got to go through this. But you don't have to be miserable while you're suffering. I mean, you can have sincere joy. And the approaches that I recommended in the monologue, there are two of them. The first one was strengthen your faith. Strengthen your faith. Again, it's that faith, that vision that we have of how great it's going to be on the other side that can help us to push through whatever difficulty we face in our journey towards our best life. And so that's the first thing. And the second thing that I mentioned was to focus on the blessings and opportunities along your way. Because as we said so often here on the program, your focus determines your reality. So many of us get caught up focused on what we don't have that we lose sight of what we do have. We're focused on, the blessings that we don't have, that we forget about the blessings we do have. But when we shift that focus and put it back on, let's focus on what we do have. Let's focus on what we can do. See, focusing on what we can do empowers us because we're focused on the power that we have. Whereas focusing on what we don't have, what we can't do, see that disempowers us. That makes us feel more like a victim because that's what victims are. Victims are those who can't do. Victims are those who don't have. And so when you put your focus there, it's natural for you to feel like your focus determines your reality. So, if your reality is too negative, if your reality is too undesirable, flip that around. Go back and look at your focus and focus on the things that will give you a positive reality, a reality that you're going to want to have in your life. Focus on the blessings, focus on the opportunities. Too many of us, we get so overwhelmed by obstacles because we're focused on the obstacle. But if we just flip that around and focus instead on the opportunity, because as we've mentioned here on the program before, there is an opportunity with each and every obstacle. Because as we learn from 2 Nephi 2, I think it's verse 11, good old Father Lehi teaching us that great eternal principle that, there's opposition in all things. And I love the way he words it, there must be opposition in all things. So that means with everything we encounter in life, everything we encounter in life must have an opposite. It's not like, it probably is an opposite. It usually is an opposite. It's nothing. It must have an opposite. And what's the opposite of an obstacle but an opportunity? So every time we face an obstacle in life, there must be an opportunity there. And if we focus instead on looking for the opportunity, then again, that will empower us to move forward, move past the difficulty. We can become empowered. We will be victors and not victims. And that's the mentality that we need to have. We want to make positive changes in our lives. So, going back to Alma's parable of the seed, just to recap really quickly, Yes, we need to have diligence. But we also need to pair with that diligence. We need to have faith, we need to have patience, and we need to have long suffering. And when we pair those three virtues with diligence, day in and day out, eventually, we'll pay whatever price that we need to pay to get the ticket to the show that we want to see. Anything that we want can be ours. I really believe that. I really, really believe that. Um, so, I leave that with you, and just and hope that you feel encouraged by the program today. That and that's part of the reason why I focused on this, because I needed a pep talk. It's like I'm at a point, and then again, where my program is getting hard, and so I need to push. I need to push through. I need to remind myself of these principles, and so I hope that in reminding myself of these principles, I was able to help you. That's all the time we have for the program today. Like I just got done saying, I hope I was able to offer you something helpful. And if I was able to help you in some way, then, you know, do me a favor, help me with the algorithms, punch the like button, and, leave a comment down below. And, um, you know, it, do something in your universe, in your world, in your sphere of influence to help somebody else. Reach out and help somebody else. Let's take the light and the goodness that we have, and let's just spread goodness. Let's just be good people to each other, and let's encourage other people by our example to be good to each other. Because Lord knows we need all the light and goodness we can muster in these days. And don't forget, come back next time for another glorious, wonderful episode of Joy in the Journey Radio. So, until then, this is your host reminding you there is joy to be had all along your journey. So take that joy, journey on.
This is the